I think just giving our group credit for being able to stick together and, know that whatever's in our locker room is really all we need.
The drama surrounding Lin Dunn and Stephanie White has cracked the Indiana Fever wide open, and Caitlin Clark may be the one paying the price. This wasn't supposed to be the script. Not for a team like the Fever, not for a player like Clark, and certainly not for a franchise that proudly calls Lin Dunn one of its architects. Yet here we are, knee-deep in a front office firestorm where social media shade, coaching malpractice, and organizational misalignment are threatening to derail the most hyped rookie season in WNBA history. Let's rewind. The Indiana Fever came into this season looking like they were ready to contend. They weren't building, they were loading. With seasoned vets like Natasha Howard, Sophie Cunningham, and Sydney Colson stacked next to generational phenom Caitlin Clark, Indiana's front office looked like it had assembled something between a super team and a redemption arc. Fans didn't just buy in, they were sold. This was supposed to be the year the Fever shed their reputation for mediocrity. But fast forward just a few weeks, and the house of cards is already collapsing. The fault lines begin with Stephanie White. Hailed as a competent, if not visionary coach, she was handed the keys to a Lamborghini and told to drive it like a rental. But instead of unleashing Caitlin Clark in the open court, instead of building an offense that flows through the most electric rookie the league has ever seen, White decided to install a motion system. Motion. For Caitlin Clark. That's like buying a Ferrari and locking it in first gear. You don't use a fire hose to water a houseplant, and you don't put Caitlin Clark in a system designed to make everyone equal. She's not just a scorer. She's an engine, a conductor, a walking cheat code. And what did we get in return for this baffling decision? 0 fast break points. An offense so rigid it could be taught in a youth clinic. A generational playmaker reduced to passing sideways, stuck in a loop of preset cuts and screens that neuter everything she does best. You don't have to be a basketball savant to see the problem. You just have to watch a single Fever possession, and then wonder why Clark looks like she's solving a Rubik's Cube with one hand tied behind her back. Now here's where the fuse gets lit. Lin Dunn, former GM, championship coach, and now senior advisor, went scorched earth. In a social media post that was short on words but heavy on implication, she essentially called out the entire coaching staff. Don't expect players to execute what you don't drill. Sounds harmless. It wasn't. It was a digital dagger, and everyone knew exactly who it was aimed at. Stephanie White. This wasn't a fan venting online. This was a franchise legend, the very woman who coached the Fever to their only title, publicly calling out the current regime. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't polite. It was an alarm bell so loud you could hear it echo across the WNBA. And if you still think this is just internal squabbling, think again, because the numbers don't lie. When Clark is on the court, the Fever post an offensive rating of 107.5. When she sits, that number craters to 82.2. That's not just a drop. That's an entire system falling apart. You can't argue those results. They're baked into every possession, every missed opportunity, every time Clark is forced to pass instead of create. It's coaching malpractice dressed up as philosophy. And fans? They've had enough. They're not whispering doubts, they're shouting demands. Fire Stephanie White. Not next week. Not next season. Because this isn't about losing games. It's about losing identity, direction, and most of all, wasting a once-in-a-generation talent whose rookie contract won't wait forever. You think this is harsh? Let's get harsher. Dana Bonner left because the system couldn't adapt. Not because of locker room drama or clashes with teammates, but because Stephanie White refuses to bend. And in a league where adaptability is the currency of survival, she's acting like stubbornness is a virtue. Want another layer of dysfunction? White was fined recently for criticizing referees. Maybe, just maybe, she should focus a little less on the officiating and a little more on the fact that her offense looks like it was ripped from a high school playbook. Meanwhile, the rest of the league is watching, licking their chops, and preparing their pitches, because if Indiana keeps flailing, you can bet that some other team will be ready to make Clark the centerpiece she deserves to be. Don't get it twisted. Clark isn't just a rookie. She's the face of a league that's desperate for the kind of stardom she brings. She didn't just sell out arenas, she made the WNBA a must-watch product for the first time in years. And if you think players like that come around often, you're dreaming. The league wants her to succeed. The fans need her to succeed. But right now, the Fever are building a cage around her instead of handing her the throne. And the irony? All of this was avoidable. People warned them. Long before tip-off, analysts were screaming from the rooftops that a rigid motion offense would strangle Clark's game. That she needed space, freedom, autonomy. Not a pattern-based system, but a playmaking playground. But White thought she knew better. And now, the results are undeniable. Let's talk philosophy. Motion offense sounds noble, democratic, even. Everybody gets a touch. Everybody gets to shine. But basketball isn't socialism, it's war. And in war, you give your best weapon the most ammo. You don't ask Steph Curry to pass first. You don't tell LeBron James to wait in the corner. And you sure as hell don't cage Caitlin Clark in a labyrinth of screens and handoffs while defenders nap through your offensive sets. This isn't about system versus star. It's about vision versus delusion. It's about whether Indiana wants to be relevant or right. Lin Dunn knows that. That's why her post hit so hard. She's seen what winning looks like. And this isn't it. Look around the league. Vegas builds around Aya Wilson. New York orbits around Sabrina Ionescu. They let their stars shine, then build systems to support, not suppress. Clark deserves the same. Not as a privilege, but as a necessity. So what happens now? Does Stephanie White swallow her pride, rip up the playbook, and start building the offense around Clark's transcendent vision? Does the Fever front office step in and course correct before real damage is done? Or do they triple down on dysfunction, pretending that everything's fine while one of the greatest talents we've ever seen becomes collateral in a coaching ego war? The Fever are at a crossroads. The next few games won't just define a season, they'll define a franchise. Because if Indiana doesn't adapt, they won't just lose games. They'll lose fans, momentum, and the most exciting rookie the WNBA's ever seen. Caitlin Clark isn't a system player. She is the system. And it's time Indiana treated her that way. Do you think Coach Stephanie White should be fired, or does she deserve more time to fix this mess? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story this explosive. Watch the next video on screen for more drama from inside the WNBA's front offices.